Welcome to MacVoices TV. This is the Talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner, and I'm happy to welcome to MacVoices TV for the very first time Gilles BianRosa, the CEO of Fanhattan. Gilles, welcome to MacVoices TV. It's great to have you.
Hi, Chuck. Thanks for having me.
Gilles, I've been very interested to learn a little bit more about Fanhattan, especially with the rumors of an Apple television with all the options we have out there for video, online video, with the fight that seems to be going on between online video distribution and the traditional cable distribution. You all seem to be finding a very interesting place in the middle, almost acting as a little more of a curator of a different kind.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. If you look at what's been happening in the space over the last 2 to 3 years, on one end you've had an explosion of devices of different kinds on which you can watch movies and TV shows, right? Smartphones, tablets, and smart TVs. And so this has been kind of going on and really sort of taking off in popularity. On the other hand, you had all of the existing content providers, right? On one hand, the studios, the cable network, etc., starting to sort of distribute some of that content through those tablets. You've also had players that come from the internet space, you know, Netflix and Amazon and iTunes, also offering movies and TV shows on those tablets. So if you look at where, you know, what are the ways for consumers to sort of be entertained on those devices, you know, by the end of this year, you have on those different formats, on those different sort of screens, a flurry of apps, right? And you have new apps, I would say, probably every week or every month, right? You have the Netflix and the iTunes, the Amazons, the Hulus of the world. Then you also have your cable operator like Xfinity, Comcast, you know, offering content. You have the cable networks like HBO and others. You have the broadcasters like ABC and NBC who are offering content. So all of that's coming to you through apps. So that sounds great because now you have, you know, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of movies and TV shows you can consume. Challenge is, okay, you're looking for a movie. Where do you go? Or where do you start? Because that movie might be on through one app, not the other. In fact, that's likely going to be the case, and that movie is going to move from one service to another over time. Same for TV shows, right? Some episodes are available with ads through the broadcaster, then they're on Hulu, then they're on Netflix. So really confusing. And I call this kind of the Balkans of content. It's, you know, really all those little islands of movies and TV shows. So we think that in order for digital entertainment to really thrive through those different screens, we think that there needs to be a guide or something that you can go to that will do a few things. But one of them, very simply, is help you find what you're looking for, right? And that's kind of one big sort of necessity we think is lacking right now on those devices. And then the second one is if you don't know what you're looking for, if you are in the mood for, you know, a romantic comedy or a sci-fi movie, or if you don't know, where are you getting the inspiration? Is there a way I can sort of keep abreast of everything that's going on in the entertainment world without having to check, you know, a dozen of applications?
Gilles, I've thought a lot about this since I learned about Fanhattan and tried to draw analogies, and it's a little difficult. I'm thinking of the apps we have now to find out what's on my local movie theater. That gives me time, location, and cost. That's sort of what Fanhattan does, but it's cutting across so many more channels because right now the providers have tried to lock us in, and Apple included, into the Apple ecosystem or the Roku system or the Hulu system or the Amazon system. And we have all this great content. You're straddling all of that, though. So really, if I decide that I want to go and find out what movie or what TV show is available online, I come to Fanhattan. You tell me where in all of those ecosystems it may exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, and I'll go back to your question around what's the perfect analogy, but the reason why you have that issue right now, or feeling that as a consumer when you are looking, for a movie through a service, you're getting a sense that you're not getting everything, is precisely because, in some sense, Hollywood wants you to be that way. The way the model has been designed is that, a movie is going to go from theaters to hotel rooms to airlines to, Blu-ray players you can buy to then DVDs you can buy to then DVDs you can rent to then digitally and then to subscription models that you're paying, on a monthly basis, and then eventually to an ad-supported free TV. But all of that happens, by having the movie moving from one of those services to the other. And so, and of course, if you're iTunes, your business model is to sell movies. So you're going to try to get somebody to launch iTunes and then rent or buy whatever is available on iTunes, which may or may not be what you wanted to watch. So to your point, then a player or a company or a service that would emerge that would kind of straddle along all those services has to be independent of those, right? It has to have a different agenda. So it has to be independent of the different content services. It also has to be different or independent from the devices. Because, in the world of video devices, there is not one dominant platform from a hardware standpoint. Unlike what happened in the music industry where, mostly sort of iTunes and Apple got the lion's share of it. So here, I might have an Android phone, an iPad, and a Samsung TV, right? And I might watch Netflix or other sort of services across those three devices. So if I'm starting to use a discovery engine on one, I want the experience to be consistent across those three. It's kind of like using Google. If you are using Google on an iPad, it's kind of the same as using Google on your Android phone at the end of the day, right? And on your PC. So that's why it's so important, we think, to have a company or a service for consumers that really isn't tied to either a content platform or to a hardware platform, and therefore it doesn't bring a hidden agenda with it. Now, I'll use an analogy since you are asking for one. The one I like the most, although it might sound a little odd at first, is Kayak, for example, as a travel search engine. If you think of the airline industries, and you think of airlines like studios, where they actually have some destinations on which they compete on, but many of them on which they don't really compete on. So when you're trying to go from San Francisco to Paris, you're not sure exactly what are the options. So you want to use a search engine that's going to be very, very agnostic to all of the different interests of the airline, right? You also want to be able to tell that engine, hey, I want to travel first, or I want to travel for the cheapest price possible, all of that. So I look at the entertainment space right now a very similar way, where Netflix and iTunes actually don't really compete. They have some titles in common, but many titles they actually don't. So it's useful to have a service that ties everything together, so that if you're looking for the best sci-fi, you want to see the best sci-fi across all those services.
Yours is one of the first services I've seen in a long time that I didn't really think didn't know I needed until I saw it. It's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Instead of trying to figure out, is subscribing to HBO through my cable worth it, or is Hulu Plus worth it? Using this, I can take what I like or what I think I want to see, get a much better feel for it, where it's available. And your point about the content moving from one service to another and one level of pricing or accessibility to another is one that we're sort of used to in the traditional model of TV, then maybe Hulu Plus, or the movie theaters, then cable, then broadcast TV. We're all sort of getting used to this new idea. And so you all seem to sit in just a perfect place to take advantage of this, and not just for your business benefit, but also for our benefit as a consumer.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, sometimes the biggest ideas or successes, in the technology side, you didn't think you needed them, and then you end up spending hours on them. I'm being reminded of that every time I use Facebook, for example. The point is, the reason why it's like that is because we have kind of looked at that space for a long time, and consumers are still, by and large, when you think of kind of mainstream adoption, they're still using that television, right? The linear television. That is kind of been the case for 50 years, and it's been ingrained in the way we consume movies and TV shows, by and large, right? And then you can turn the TV on, and you can flip through the different channels, and it's fairly simple. It's limited, but it's simple. So here, the reason why you didn't think you needed this just yet is because we are right at the point where it's becoming more and more evident that if you really want to be able to have an experience that is just like television on a tablet, right, or on your television itself, you will the bar has been set in terms of what you need to deliver from an ease of use standpoint. So we think that yes, it's a good idea to sort of tie all those services together, and then we've realized by working on it for the last 3 years that it's actually really, really hard to do. And so the reason why you don't see that many services like this is because there are two key problems that are very hard to resolve, and you have to focus a lot on it and do only that day and night if you really want to do a good job at it. And the first one is all of that data about movies and TV shows and platforms and devices and rights and everything, and the trailers and the artwork and the reviews and the T-shirts and the soundtracks, all of that. All of that sounds like you have to tie all that together so that when you say, hey, I really like Star Trek and I want to see everything about Star Trek, you have to have a pretty robust database that tells you, well, here's everything about Star Trek on the iPad or on the iPhone. That's the first big problem. And the second one has to do with the user experience. Even if you tie all of that data together well, you still need to create a very immersive experience, one that feels like I want to spend time on, that feels it's clean, but it's immersive at the same time, kind of like what my TV has been for the last 20 years, right? And so you have to deliver all the richness of the new content you can find through the devices, but keep the simplicity as high as you can. And so that's also very hard, and I think we've worked really hard on this, and based on the feedback we're getting from our users, people love the way we've integrated it. But those are the two main reasons why you don't see that many services currently on those devices that are doing what we're doing.
One of the things strikes me that the two that you named are very important. The one that I think you might have a big challenge with, is the media companies themselves. In one breath, I can see them anxious to have a service like this so they can promote what's on their platforms. In another one, I can see some resistance because they would prefer to lock us into their platforms, a la broadcast and some of the cable companies right now. Have you met any significant resistance, or do people see this as part of the brave new world of entertainment delivery?
Yeah, it's interesting. I get that question sometimes, and ironically, no, we're not getting a lot of friction, and I'll tell you exactly why. So first of all, when you say media companies, I think we have to differentiate between the people who create the content, so the studios, really, of which there are about 6 of them, and then their licensees, right? So platforms who license content from the studios and then distribute it. So, Amazon, iTunes, Netflix. So the studios themselves love what we're doing for the very simple reason. They invest sometimes hundreds of millions, sometimes even more of dollars into building content brands. So you think of Harry Potter, for example, right? That's a brand that's being built, and amazingly is making it from book to theme park in less than 15, 20 years, which is pretty amazing. But it costs a lot of money, and then in order to do that, they basically invest in many, many, many different ways you as a consumer are going to be exposed to this brand, right? And so what we are doing at the end of the day is taking every kind of ways that brand Harry Potter has been created, so movies, games, and T-shirts, soundtracks, everything, and then group it together so a consumer who loves Harry Potter can have every single way they can to enjoy that. So if you're a studio, there's nothing not to like about it, right? Because if you're spending time as a consumer on this Harry Potter page on Fanhattan, you're going to end up renting something, buying something, downloading an app, whatever, but you're going to be able to consume kind of what the studio has created. So they really love that. Now, the content platforms, you could think, well, you're really kind of creating a shopping comparison engine here, but actually we're really not, because as I was describing, the challenge here is not so much what's the best service between A and B for watching a movie. The main problem is, okay, if I'm looking for Harry Potter, just to use that example, you've got, 7 of them now, movies? Some of them will be on Netflix, some others will be on iTunes, some others will be in theaters, right? And so, if you're Netflix, you want to make sure that not only you get people who go straight to you by launching the app, but you also want to catch consumers who are searching for Harry Potter, maybe because they want to watch it in theaters, and by doing so, they are reminded that there are older Harry Potter movies that they could watch on Netflix. So through that, they are catching traffic and engagement that they wouldn't have gotten if people had gone straight to Netflix in the first place. It's no different than, shops like to go and build malls, right? And you could say in a mall, it's kind of a competition, but no, at the same time, you have more consumers there because it's a mall. Same for TV itself, aggregating, you have HBO and ABC and NBC and all of those into one platform through your cable box. Well, that's because it's more convenient. So really, I don't see that as any different.
Good point. Good point. It's interesting the different ways you can think about all this. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the concept and what Fanhattan delivers. Do you mind showing us a little bit of exactly how you deliver it and how we can use it?
Yeah, so I'm gonna absolutely. So we launched initially on the iPad, and it's quite simple. I'll show it to you. So before Fanhattan, you would basically access. You would have a screen like this, which here has most of the entertainment apps you could find on an iPad, and it's the same on an iPhone or smart TVs. And so here I have some great apps. I've got iTunes, Netflix, Xfinity, HBO, Fandango for movie tickets, and Harry Potter because it has sort of some content about it. But the point is, it's great like this. But then if I'm looking for something to watch, where do I go, right? So that's kind of the point we've been discussing. So here instead, I'm going to launch Fanhattan by launching the app, and immediately I get pulled into a world of content, not a world of apps. So I can basically browse movies. So as soon as I enter the movie area, I'm still focused on the content itself, on the movies themselves, not on how I'm going to watch them, which is the way consumers like to think about, entertainment. So I have essentially many ways I can discover the content. I can discover it through different lists, hot new, essentially algorithms that are telling you kind of what's happening on the device. I can watch it. I can discover what my friends are liking. We've got this great Facebook feature that essentially pulls all my friends' movies that they are either liking or talking about on Facebook, and it pulls all of that into Fanhattan. They don't have to have Fanhattan, my friends, precisely. But as long as they're on Facebook talking about movies, I get all that information, distilled for me into a very kind of easy to browse list of movies, right? Or I can kind of track news, about what's going on. So we're going into the Christmas season, so we'll create a kind of a Christmas list. And the great thing about our list is that, unlike an iTunes or Netflix, they will include movies that are in theaters and movies that are 50-year-old, and all of that into sort of one list. It's completely agnostic. It's kind of a 360-degree experience. And so once I find something I like, what we try to do a really good job at is to deliver to consumers kind of the ultimate experience. So we were talking about Star Trek here. So if you access the Star Trek portal, you get sort of great visuals, a lot of artwork that, sets the mood. You get reviews. You get, it's always hard to use an iPad when you're kind of not facing it. You get, social networking information, meaning that's the movie Facebook page or Twitter movie, the Twitter page for Star Trek. You get the cast and crew. You can pivot and access all of the other movies that they've been in, even movies that are currently in production, not even yet in theaters. You get all the clips organized for you, and they're one click away. So, if I want to watch a Star Trek clip, I just click play, and I don't leave the app, and I get the clip right here, playing. Right.
The man your father was, Jim. Starfleet can use
you. I can get the soundtrack and literally listen to the soundtrack right here, still from that same page. It's pretty cool. See? It's kind of a soft piece of music. Now I can download the other Star Trek apps. So that's amazing because I'm on an iPad and I like Star Trek, so I'll be able to download all the other apps, the games, everything about it. So essentially, a lot. And by the way, just to complete this, I can also get, if I'm really a big fan, into the merchandising, right? With posters and toys, And you know, lots of like here's the Uno Star Trek game, for example. So all of that you can get literally by stumbling upon the Star Trek page. I didn't have to commit to a lot of complex things as a consumer. I literally just saw Star Trek, I tapped on it, and all of a sudden I've got this kind of magical world of Star Trek that sort of opens up for me. So that's essentially if you want to discover all the related content on a particular movie, like Star Trek in this case. You know, let's explore something else. For example, another sort of sci-fi movie in that case, Iron Man. And so here, what I'd like to focus on is, you know, so first of all, you've got the same sort of great related content you can engage with if you're a big fan of Iron Man. But the really what's interesting here is you look at the Watch Now panel, which is where you can see all of the different options for you to watch the movie. So the one that are highlighted, you know, in kind of light gray here are ones that have a playback option on the iPad. And what's great about this is I just hit play, and essentially it launches, in that case, the Netflix player, and I'm ready to watch my movie. Now, if I go back to Fanhattan because I want to sort of explore some other option, I can also see options that are available even though they don't have a play option on the iPad. In that case, I'm using my iPad as a remote or as a guide. So here I've got the PlayStation Network. I've got sort of discs by mails. I can rent discs on Amazon.com, on Blockbuster Video, etc. So the beauty here is that I have all of those options, and so I can make a decision based on really what service I like to use, whether there is playback on this particular device or whether I want to use that as a sort of guide and then sort of watch it on you know, my PS3, for example. Another example would be if you like sort of TV shows. So here, you know, I go back to the top of the app and I move from movies over to TV shows. And, you know, looking for the show that you care about is as simple as, you know, using search. Let's say I want to look for Modern Family. I'm just going to type Modern. And then here we go. It's right here. So here again, you can see the different options for watching my favorite Modern Family show. So I have sort of ad-supported options like ABC. I've got subscriptions like Hulu. And I can also rent from iTunes. So that's a really good example of the different ways you can actually watch this particular episode, which is season 3, episode 9 of Modern Family. And let's say, you know, since I want to watch it with ads and, you know, for free, then I'm just going to launch the ABC player. And right here, I'm here watching a Modern Family. So see, it's as simple as that. Really simple and really engaging. And so we think consumers are going to love it. So as you access the TV shows area, you will see episodes basically available through different services. And so recent episodes are going to be available on the broadcaster's site, for example, ABC. Less recent one will be available on iTunes and Hulu Plus, and all the ones will be available on Netflix, right? And the playback experience is as simple as sort of finding the episode you want, finding the service you want, you hit play, and then what we do at that point is we basically launch the app, the player, essentially, let's say Netflix, by literally launching it at the point of playback down this app. So you don't have to search again in Netflix or iTunes or ABC. It's a pretty cool and very neat kind of handoff between Fanhattan and the playback site.
We're talking about iPad right now, but I also saw on the site that you have plans to take this to our televisions as well. What form is that going to take, and are you going to be able to deliver that same experience of being able to dive right into the content from Fanhattan?
Yeah, I mean, we look at kind of the need to deliver a Fanhattan-like experience across 3 different areas. There's mobile, which is tablets and phones. So we've been focusing on the iOS platform for now. You will see us doing things on the Android side pretty shortly. Then there's the web. So the web is interesting for us. We think of it as more of a companion kind of social experience, a lot more than a playback experience. Although people do watch movies on the web, you know, on the computer. This was kind of the early days of streaming. I think now more and more people are using the devices kind of like smart TVs or tablets because they are a lot more comfortable to watch movies than having a laptop on your on your apps. But some people like to do that. And so that's the web. And so we've been already we've launched some widgets and some products on the web that there are more things coming up in this area. And then there's TV. So TV is a project for us that is more of a long-term project. And I'll tell you why. We think the early adopters right now who want to engage with content the way we've just been describing it are on iPad and iPhone, right? And TVs, you really want to get the experience right, in order to make an effort to sort of build a product that really is going to work on TV. So we've been working on that for a while. We are not ready to announce what we're doing on the TV side, but it's going to come pretty shortly, yes.
We'll be looking forward to seeing how you accomplish that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you the one thing that is for sure is that we'll launch it. We'll launch something that we think is as exciting as possible and as immersive as possible, especially on those new sort of large flat-screen TVs. That is the bar we've set on the iPad and on the iPhone, and so we want to deliver above that on the TV side as well.
Gilles, this seems like an awful lot of convenience and information and all to deliver just out for free. Is there a pay model at this stage, and will there be a pay model, or how are you monetizing this?
Yeah, so that's so the service is free. The app is free to consumers, right? And so we make money in a very simple way, in a similar way that Kayak, for example, makes money. Which we make money when our partners make money, right? So with some of our partners, we have relationships in place where we are an affiliate to them. So that's essentially how we monetize today. Which is very similar to kind of a search or discovery model, whether horizontal like Google or vertical like Kayak.
That's simple and that's great. That means the more of us that use this and take advantage of it, the more win we have. And for once, I feel very comfortable saying that, because this does feel like it's something that I will want to use going forward, as more of us either cut the cord or cut back on some of our cable subscriptions and just take what is fed to us and become a little more discerning about what it is we're going to watch and what we're looking for. Actually,
on that point, since that's something you mentioned also earlier, we look at the world and we think, ultimately going forward, you will still have some sort of cable subscription. It's interesting, this concept of the cord, as people have described. I think it's kind of a wrong analogy, because, Netflix is a cord too. Although it's just not literally a cable cord, and maybe you're spending less than what you're spending with Comcast, but it's still a cord. It's a subscription, right? So going forward, we think that consumers are still going to spend about the same amount of money per month on content, because whether that content is funneled through your existing cable provider or directly through companies like Netflix or iTunes, it still costs the same amount of money to produce. And so the studios need to be able to can essentially recoup that investment one way or another. I think what's going to change, though, is that consumers are going to demand a lot more transparency and options in terms of how they manage essentially what they're spending every month on entertainment. Kind of like what you would do when you travel. Again, you can decide to travel first or coach, or you can decide to have one or two layovers, but all those things they're under your control now as a consumer, because you have all the information. And we think that in this day and age, transparency is really important. And so with services like Fanhattan, consumers can see kind of what their options are and then decide what's best for them.
And I don't disagree with your point, especially about Netflix being a cord or cable as well. I think the difference is that in this world and through things like Fanhattan, I get to choose where I spend my money and get a better value for the money, as opposed to doing the kind of all-you-can-eat buffet that the cable companies provide, and then having costs associated with that buffet that they really don't apply to what I'm interested in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you might be paying for the golf channel, although you're not playing golf. And I think those things are where you could probably going to see models changing. And I think, the jargon in the industry is to call about, unbundling. Kind of if you think of the cable model where you've got hundreds of channels and you're not really watching 100 of them, that will definitely, in my sense, is going to get under pressure for sure, as consumers are getting more discerning in terms of what they really want to pay for. But that's probably ultimately a good thing. I think ultimately, if the money that consumers are spending every month on entertainment is being funneled to what they really want to see more of, that means there's more money available for Hollywood to produce this kind of content. So ultimately, it becomes, I think, a better model for everybody.
Agreed. Agreed. And Fanhattan will be there to take full advantage of those opportunities.
I would love to be, we'd love to help contribute, kind of make that happen for sure.
I think you're already doing it. Gilles, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. It's been very interesting, and we'll watch with great interest and enthusiasm to see how Fanhattan moves forward.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, Chuck.
Folks, that's Gilles BianRosa. He is the CEO of Fanhattan at fanhattan.com. Please check out their website to decide what you're going to watch on TV or on your iPad tonight. Please check out the MacVoices TV site. We'll have links to everything in our show notes so you can find us. You can find Fanhattan and their app in the iTunes Store. Until the next time, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. MacVoices TV is part of the MacVoices Group and a member of Mac Level 10.